Welcome back to another video. Stephen and Sam dressed the same on a long-form chat. Guys, I've got Sam back for another epic kind of podcast thing. After last time, it went down really well. And as you know as well, I am partnering with The Athletic at the moment, which obviously Sam is one of their writers. It's the new home of football writing, the best coverage of Manchester City that you'll find anywhere online. Would you say that's true, Sam?
I can't say that's true. It's only me covering City.
Well, I can say it's true, so there we go. It's got a whole host of incredible writers, including David Ornstein, Michael Cox, Jared Brooks, it is true, Rafa Honigstein, and obviously, of course, our very own Sam Lee. And it seems to be more every single day. Like I've noticed recently.
Too much.
It's so many. It's basically, they've also partnered with like These Football Times as well, I've noticed recently. Adam Hurry from Football Cliches. I got a feeling Danny Taylor's going over there as well. I'm not sure if that's true or not. Can't say, but that's just my theory. Basically, they've got loads of great writers. It's also ad-free. There's no pop-ups, all that kind of stuff, and you can get 50% off your subscription if you go over to athletic.co.uk/Esteemed Kompany. It's about £2.50 a month, and you get your first month as a trial as well. So go to the link in the description and get loads of top-class Manchester City and loads of football content in general from loads of great writers, where you get a chance to actually breathe and write some articles.
There's loads of crossover as well.
Yeah.
There's loads of stuff you think, even if you don't support whoever the club is, it might not even be a club.
I'm reading so much more now about teams I don't support because of this, because of the app. Genuinely am.
And also, like with Spurs going wrong at the minute, you're like, what's going on with Spurs? And you think, well, the whole kind of point of us is to be a bit more analytical and
Jack's very good at that as well.
A bit more time to get into it. So we've got Jack, we've got Charlie Eccleshare, who just started writing about Spurs for us like a couple of weeks ago. So there's that kind of stuff. There's like a massive Ed Woodward thing about United. So like,
I've not read that yet, but it looks good.
Exactly. I've not had the chance either because I've been all over the place today.
It's called This Is Ed Woodward, which I like.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the idea
I
of
think it's about 5,500 words, but I've heard about the work that's gone into it. I've just not read it yet. Obviously the good thing is, City fans can probably enjoy the fact that it's United not being very good. So there's that element. But there's also clubs like that you might not even just be that bothered about. But you think, oh, well, Everton, or not even what's going on with Everton.
More than
like
that
Spurs,
as well than Everton. It's
West Brom.
West Brom and all that kind of stuff. Articles and
Leeds is really well served with Phil Hay, who's another great writer. But yeah, there's loads of stuff on there. And it's kind of timeless stuff as well. There's stuff on there that you don't need to read today. There's stuff, stuff about City that you could read whenever, like interviews like Stephen Ireland a few weeks ago spoke to Gerard Weekins today, which will be going up Monday, I think. If
Walking in the Weekins Wonderland, what a guy!
And you can read those whenever. That's the beauty.
You sound like you're enjoying it.
Yeah, I am. It's good.
Yeah, you sound energetic, but it's like nothing worth having. It doesn't come easy, does it?
Yeah,
exactly.
Basically. Yeah.
So today, basically, because obviously it's international break, we thought we'd just chat the shit about some stuff based off Twitter. So I put the question out to Twitter, and all these people replied, and we've got loads of questions today to go through. We're going to start initially with a very interesting one, a very open one from Cheeto Blue. He says, "Is Arteta the man after Pep in City's eyes, or is it someone else?" There's also kind of like a linked question as well from Mike Harris, which is at Free Ducks on Tour. What's Van Bronckhorst's role at the club? So there's kind of a link there. What's your take on all this then?
Well, to address the Van Bronckhorst thing first, now, to be honest, to give you a better idea of this, there was a couple of stories yesterday. I think Jack Gorn and John Smith both did it. He's going to work for it, or he's being lined up for New York.
Oh, okay. So after Dominic Torrent.
Yeah. And then did somebody reply to this today, or did somebody ask me? I saw it quickly on Twitter this morning, but like I said, I've been rushing around, saying, is Dominic Torrent coming back to City? I mean, given it's gone so well at New York.
He's done very well, hasn't he?
Didn't they win their thing?
But if
they win their thing, then there's playoffs, isn't
it's
there?
good to win a thing.
So presumably there's more to come.
I think they won their regional, something like a regional division kind of thing.
Expert,
I'm not an MLS expert either, but I know they've won something that they've never won before, and it's over the course of a long campaign.
It's the league, isn't it? But then obviously the way American sports work, you'll have the East against the West, I would guess, for the whole overall thing. So like he's got more stuff to come, and if that's going well, I'm not sure why he would go back. So to be honest, the first time I heard that mentioned was on Twitter today in a question, so I'm not sure. The other thing is, Van Bronckhorst, there was a story the other week after the Everton game, wasn't there, about him being lined up maybe as Pep's successor. We'll come back to that in a minute.
Wonder if he's Arteta's successor.
Well, the thing is, the whole Van Bronckhorst thing, because I went and asked around, I asked one of my sources who knows Cheeky, and he was saying, he goes, this guy said, when I asked Cheeky, he just said, something in the academy, and I was like, that's suspicious, because Cheeky knows everything. It's like Cheeky doesn't Cheeky wouldn't not know what was going on.
But then, also he's too high profile for just something in the academy. Surely he's only been a manager.
Exactly. But then, so I was like, that's a bit suspicious. Maybe there is something to it. But then I spoke to more people at City, and they were just like, he's having like a year off from managing, and he wants to come in and have a look at how the whole City football group works, not just from like a coaching side of things, but just as like kind of like a business.
Yeah.
And he was like, when I had this conversation, I think they said he's in New York at the moment, and he's going to go to Melbourne and that kind of thing as well. So I think he's just going and looking at the coaching setup, the business setup. I don't think there's anything really. In fact, it was pretty strongly denied, the idea that he would be in any kind of way a replacement for Pep. And also, unless Arteta was basically, they knew Arteta was going to be out the door soon.
Yeah.
I don't think you need somebody else within, because Arteta, it makes complete sense that he's there. Now,
I've just realised I find fascinating in general. I've never really thought about it this way before. It's almost like, City have got all these loan clubs, and now they're getting coaches with potential and actually loaning coaches out. It's like they've got a farm of managers now.
Well, they did it with Vieira as well, didn't they?
And he's obviously still technically on their radar. He doesn't work for the club anymore, but he's very much been groomed by them. He's like on the buyback clause, basically. They wanted him, and then they're possibly going to do it with Van Bronckhorst. They'll probably do it Dominic Torrent, and then maybe Arteta at some point. It's almost like they're kind of grooming the successor from within. Which is not something you've really seen in them very often at all. And
City have changed the game in
100%. And it feels
owning all these clubs.
It feels unprecedented. It's weird.
Yeah, but obviously the thing with that is you can never know. But in the same way as you never know with youth team players, because things can change and whatever. Or like you have Sancho and Brahim, who are really good, but it might not work out. Or they might just not even get to that level for whatever reason. But with the managers, it's all because over the years, how many times have you seen retweeted on Twitter, like 5 years later, something like Owen Coyle should go and manage Arsenal or whatever. Like when Owen Coyle was like working in like Canada or whatever, you just think it's mad. And you got David O'Leary should have gone to United or whatever, and you just think these things change so quickly over 2 or 3 years.
It's football, isn't it?
And like if Pep goes in 18 months, a lot of stuff's going to change. Arteta might get a better offer in the meantime. Pochettino, his stock might get lower. If Spurs keeps going really like as it is, his stock might get lower.
We see how quickly
I think he'll be fine. But then if he ends up leaving Spurs soon or at the end of the season, he could go United, Real Madrid, wherever.
And then also he's off the market, isn't he?
And then he's off the market because you're not going to leave somewhere after a year.
Do you think he's high on City's list currently? If, say, for whatever reason, I hope it doesn't happen, Guardiola walked out tomorrow, do you think Pochettino would be up there on the list?
I think so.
It would make a lot of sense in many ways.
But it's one of those, isn't it? This is what I mean about the whole difficulty of the manager situation, where like you can look at who's doing well now, but then you're never really going to lock them down. I've forgotten the guy's name now, but he went from Hoffenheim to RB Leipzig. He went from Hoff, and everyone knew that season in advance he was going to go. That's very rare that you lock a manager down in advance and you know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Because you can look at managers now, but as I mentioned, like with Coyle and O'Leary or whatever before, they can either their stock can get dramatically lower. Or they
never
could
thought
just
I'd
be
Owen Coyle and Nagelsmann in the same sentence. It's the first that anybody heard.
Yeah, but it goes to show that he was doing all right at Burnley,
Yeah.
wasn't he? And then it just went and he's fallen off the radar. And that can happen. And then, it might be the case with Pochettino where he goes and you're not going to get him out of a big contract at another club at that particular time.
Exactly.
So you make all these plans and, people ask these questions and it's completely understandable, but you can only answer to a certain extent. And it's like any footballer. You go, what about like Kai Havertz or whatever? Goes, on this? I'm sure he's on the list because and every club in Europe look for these top players.
The other winger, the Jamaican guy, I forgot his name, was in the Bundesliga. I've just totally
Leon Bailey.
Yeah, he was the hot thing for a while.
Yeah, it was him. It was him or Mahrez kind of situation.
And then he's just quieting down big time. And that shows how it's such a sliding doors moment, isn't it?
So there's that,
but
also they know who they are. They'll be watching the games. I could probably write a story tomorrow saying City are keeping an eye on Kai Havertz. But it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Unless there's a bit of intent to go and buy it, or it maybe shows that, if it was like they think they're going to lose Sane or whatever, and they're going to do this, then that adds a bit of credence to it. But the fact that in its own right they're keeping an eye on somebody who's good isn't really a surprise. And it's the same thing with managers. And you can plan, but they might go somewhere else in the meantime. And Arteta, obviously in the frame.
You've written some articles recently about him, Arteta, because I saw the one about the best pair of Spaniards. We know kind of that City song. And how highly rated is Arteta in the club? Because we've seen a lot of kind of like positive PR about him in general. Because I think I'm not sure if that's been coming from the club, like intentionally, like to keep him happy, to keep him there because you like him, or is it just because he's that good and people want to talk about him? Or what do you make of the Arteta thing in general?
Well, I think the important thing to realise, really, obviously Rodolfo Barral came up into the City setup as well in terms of coaches. Mm-hmm. But this was a coaching staff that was untouched basically from when Guardiola started out. Torrent and Carles Blanchard were there from Barca B, and then Lorenzo Bonaventura joined at Barca. And then there was when Pep had his sabbatical, some of them stayed at Barca, and then they went to Bayern with him. But they've always been together. Arteta obviously broke into that.
Yeah.
He was, Brian Kidd had a more of a useful role when Pep first came because he was like, Turf Moor, you gotta be careful.
The old wise man.
The intricacies of English football. But the thing is, Arteta knew that, and he just finished playing with Arsenal. So it wasn't just, be careful of Turf Moor and Goodison.
It was last time you played there.
Actually, but it was actually like, but these players can do this and that kind of thing. So he was very useful then. And then obviously when Torrent left, he'd been Guardiola's number 2 for ages.
Yeah.
And, at the start of that season, you start thinking, is that where there could be a problem? Arteta just came in and he's just carried on. And you talk about how well liked he is and well talked about. It's because he's a really nice guy, by all accounts. When he did that press conference at the start of the season, before the Lyon game, he came across really well. That always helps, just on a basic kind of PR level, if he's a nice guy. But in that article, in the book that's coming out soon from Paul and Lou, there's loads of stuff in there about how he works with the players. How I did an article about him when it looked like he was going to go to Arsenal, just as a kind of, this is what he does at City. And he was like, well, Arsenal fans can make their own mind up whatever happens. But this is what he does at City. He's so involved. Because obviously Pep's so intense, but he can't be on top of everything.
Yeah,
but Arteta's there as well, and he gets what Guardiola's thinking. Like it's almost kind of like there's that relationship. He knows what Guardiola's thinking without Guardiola even saying it. They're on the same wavelength. And then Guardiola's. I think the best thing about Guardiola is he's got these complex ideas, but he puts them across so simply, and he can explain them so simply. Arteta's like that as well, but he can physically show them on the training pitch as well. And like I said in that
that's
article,
rare, isn't it? Like most people struggle with it. They can have the ideas, but not the way of explaining it, or vice versa.
And then to be able to actually physically show them as well, that's like another level to it altogether. And it's not just central players. Like it's not just he knows how to work with central midfielders, or midfielders who have turned into defenders, or even centre backs. He's worked a lot with Sane. He's worked a lot with Sterling. He's worked a lot with Aguero. Completely different players to what Arteta was.
The proof's the pudding with Sterling, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, exactly. And even Sane, to be fair, he had his problems last season, but in terms of the development in his game, which was undeniable from my first season to even now. I'm sure we'll get to that later on as well. But so Arteta, there's some of the reasons why Arteta is so clearly thought of. And now, at the moment, it completely makes sense that he's in the thinking, but over the next year or 18 months, so many things can happen.
We'll just have to see on that front, because obviously with Manchester City, you never know how many cards they've got close to the chest, do you? Because they just plan like no one else, Cheeky and Varane and all that. I'm sure Pep will have a big say as well. But we'll move on to something else now. So David Gaskell, going to David's question in a bit. During Kante, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but DK Constant on Twitter said, what's with the lesser pressing intensity this season compared to the previous ones? And there's also kind of slightly linked question from Kurt Simpson, who said, why hasn't David Silva got a rest when his running stats and performances are in decline? That was obviously a rumour that came out as well, so I'm not sure how true that is, but that was what we saw on Twitter. I said, is it all based on KDB's availability? So what's your take on the whole pressing things? From the less informed like myself looking out, it does feel like it's dropped a bit. There were signs at the start against West Ham where we actually suffered them. But then it does feel like recently it's not been quite as intense. Like I don't know. I'm not sure. I struggle to put the pieces together.
It's one of the things I've been trying to get my head around. Even because before the Wolves game, it wasn't like, excuse the pun, it wasn't like a pressing concern, but it was like, things are different at City. Yeah. And even the Everton game, the difference was really City were playing better and creating chances, and they looked more likely they were going to score at 1-1 with 20 minutes to go at Goodison. But you could never rule out Everton because of just the long balls into the box or the set pieces or a counter-attack or whatever, just because of the whole City fragile defensiveness at the moment. And this ties into the pressing situation. But the difference there was Mara scored that free kick. And the difference at Norwich was Wolves. I'm confusing up Wolves and Norwich because of the both bad performances and the defeat. But the difference against Wolves was David Silva's free kick hit the bar. And it wasn't a great chance for City. But, it's just one of those, it could have papered over the cracks. But now it's like, right, what's going on with City? And I still haven't got to the bottom of the 4-4-2 thing. And I think that ties into the pressing, because City have changed to 4-4-2 in some games. It was at Norwich I noticed. I was like, David Silva's right up alongside Aguero.
I've even noticed De Bruyne being right outside Aguero a couple of times as well. And it feels very much more traditional. It didn't seem that thing where you've got like the little W shapes kind of pressing like that and stuff. It didn't feel like that. It felt a lot more regimented, and it felt quite old-fashioned, really, which is, I think I wouldn't usually associate with Guardiola, but like I don't. Do you think?
Well, I spoke to somebody not at the club, but to somebody who sends me messages sometimes on Twitter, and we talk about tactics and that. And I'm like, why do we think this is? And this was a couple of weeks ago. It might have been after the Shakhtar game. And he was like, David Silva and Aguero, if they're the two, then maybe they can cover more spaces without having to be so explosive and run so much.
Yeah,
they're there, and it can stop the opposition playing out, but without them having to do so much. But then I haven't fully got to the bottom of it. But then you think, if the pressing's not quite there, or the teams are finding a way around the pressing, then you can get into then the problems. Because to very, very briefly cover this, and I might write about this next week just to outline everything. But I've spoken about it before. Rodri, very good on the ball.
In the description, get the article.
Yeah, Rodri's very good on the ball. They knew at the start of the season, and he'd given an interview this week saying, he needs to learn when to press. Because if he goes at the wrong time,
very.
But if he goes at the wrong time, then there's a big hole in the defence, and that's the problem. And he started off brilliantly to the level where people are expecting Cancelo to have started as well as him.
Yeah.
But he's just started off really well. Cancelo's just normal; it takes time to adapt. But so he's not stopping all the counter attacks that Fernandinho would. So if the pressing's not quite there, the defensive midfield isn't quite there yet because he's stopping 90 out of 100 counter attacks, but there's still 10 getting through. And there's no Laporte either. Zinchenko, not great form at the moment. We all know what happens with Otamendi when he's under pressure in a one-on-one situation. Walker as well at times. Fernandinho, bless him, he's kind of doing his best, but it's that gif of the house being on fire, and he's just like, this is fine.
Yeah.
Oh, what can you do?
Leaning against the post like that.
Yeah, it's like, what can you do?
Yeah.
So it's like, whatever it is in the pressing, and I think it's linked to the 4-4-2. Guardiola said after the Norwich game that he told the players after Bournemouth, when obviously City won, he was like, be careful guys, because they had extra chances, and he said he knew why. He was like, for this reason, this reason, this reason. Didn't say why in the press conference. I asked him after Wolves, and I said, you said you knew the reasons why, but obviously Wolves, there was even more counters, and it was a much worse performance.
Yeah.
And he was like, but it's not the defensive thing, it's the solidity in the midfield and the build-up, which is obviously why he wanted Gundogan in there, which is maybe, again, the 4-4-2 thing, and he said it's flatter. But then just whether there's some problems adjusting to that, or it's not quite the same. You mentioned, it's a rumour about David Silva and the running stats, but it was Jack Horner who wrote that article. Jack's stuff is really well sourced.
Yeah, Jack's a good lad.
And that will have come from, a good place. I spoke to him about it the other day. And it's interesting that, and, part of the Kurt Simpson question was, why is he not getting a rest? But as far as I could tell you, he has been getting a rest, because he's not been playing the 3 games in a week. It's like, if there's a midweek game, he won't play in that, or
he did play against Preston, which I found was bizarre.
I thought the Preston one was, and then I didn't expect he would play against Everton, but he didn't play against Everton, did he?
It was
Gundogan, because he got a lot of criticism, but he was playing further back. Gundogan was playing further back, and De Bruyne was there, so he is still getting rest. Last season, Silva told them, he went, I can't play 3 games a week, and that's when he says, is it because of KDB's availability? It was last season. He was getting played all the time, David Silva was. This season, I think he is getting more rest.
Quickly.
But there is something, in terms of, it wasn't so much the running stats, and it wasn't the fact he was lazy. It's just that energy. And maybe it is the running stats. It's that energy. It's like what Pep supposedly said to him in the dressing room afterwards was, you didn't give us that extra kind of boost. Because he didn't need to run with the ball or do a 40-yard pass, David Silva, does it? It's just how he he does it. Like, it's difficult to explain. Like the Spanish players are so good at, and particularly David Silva. Yeah. But there's a bit of a drop off in that, and maybe it's age, maybe it's just a dip in form, because that's normal for whatever reason. So there's that, and that ties in with the whole pressing thing. And then if he's not playing well, then the link up with the left winger's not there, and the teams aren't getting in behind.
Especially when
there's more crosses because they're lacking ideas, because Zinchenko's not going to get in behind.
You noticed that?
Yeah, because Sterling can beat a man, but he can't beat 3 or 4 on his own. So he just goes back to Zinchenko. Zinchenko can't beat a man. And if Silva's not playing well, or if he's marked, then what do? You would think they would be more patient, pass back to Rodri, go over to the other side, but they're not. It's almost like they're told, if they're in the final third, don't lose that urgency. So they put the ball into the box, but obviously that doesn't work, as we've seen. They make more crosses. Whenever City lose a game, they make more crosses. So I wonder if Pep will change that and make them a bit more patient, which you think they would be. But basically, so if David Silva's dropped off for whatever reason, maybe the pressing's not there, the link-ups aren't there, and then all that increases the burden on the defensive midfield, and then they get through the defensive midfield, and it increases the burden on the defence, and as we know, the defence is sloppy, and voila, we've got problems.
So there's a lot of cause and effect, basically.
Yeah. It's all linked. It's all linked.
Just, it's not in the question here, but just a brief aside. Because obviously those Foden quotes have been going crazy the past 24 hours for the Guardiola stuff. Like, what's your take on the chronology of those in general? Like, that's what I've been trying to work out. Like, are those quotes, because they're obviously from the book, are those quotes from like 7-8 months ago? Are they post?
I don't know, actually.
Yeah, sure.
Paul and Lou met Pep in the summer, ostensibly to talk about Sane, because they were like doing a Sane paragraph.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if the Sane quotes have been published yet, but
that'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's not I've seen it, but it's not explosive. But it's the last thing in the chapter, and it's like it leaves you with a distinct impression. It's what Guardiola said to us all the time.
Yeah.
It depends on him. He's got all the ability, but it's that but, and that comes across really well in the book. The Foden thing, I'm not sure about, but at the Athletic, we actually wanted to serialise it.
Okay.
So they sent me the book, the transcript of it, and I read it, and I was like, we'll do the Foden thing, because that's really good. Do the Sane thing, there's an Aguero one, and there's another thing about Pep on match days. But in the end, the Sun got it because they offered more money. So we obviously haven't got that much money.
They would have found a way to go anyway, allegedly. So.
Yeah, true. So they ended up getting it. So I'm a bit annoyed, actually, even though it's not my work. I was like, I wanted to kind of push it out. But the Foden quotes, I'm not sure when they're from, but like I've wrote about Foden before, a column just saying, look, people want Foden to play now, and I understand that. Foden wants to play now, I understand that. But Guardiola genuinely does think he's going to replace David Silva. And next season, they won't buy a replacement.
So he's going to replace
David Silva. And then obviously, now Pep said that himself in these quotes, which everyone's latching onto. Obviously, I understand the discrepancy there, because he's saying this, and he's saying 500 million, and he's saying in the summer he's the most talented player ever. And everyone's saying, play him then. But the other thing Guardiola says, which isn't picked up so much because it's not such an explosive thing as he's the most talented player ever. And when he does that, it's easy to write that story from a tabloidy point of view of Guardiola said this, and people are thinking, we'll play him then. But he said before the Champions League game, it's something like, look, I know it's difficult to think now, or it's difficult to say this, but trust us, we're doing this for Foden's development.
Yeah.
And in England, and the thing that Guardiola's people are very keen on getting out there is Iniesta didn't play until he was like 23 and Xavi. And they're used to that culture of protecting the young players. Obviously, like at Barcelona now, Ansu Fati's playing and all this, and there are exceptions. But in England,
they're a less well-managed club, it's worth pointing out as well.
Exactly. So and they haven't got options. If they had loads of world-class options and Dembele was fit, he wouldn't be playing. Simple as that. But in England, we're used to, Rooney played when he was 16 and Owen played. It's like, but look what happened. Like, Rooney dropped off a cliff massively when he was...
He was
31, 32.
He's like a freaky exception, really, wasn't he?
But he played early.
Yeah.
But he dropped off big time, like towards the end of his career. Michael Owen obviously had his problems with injuries, which was related to that. And Guardiola's thinking on that is, he is great, but he's 19, and I've got Gundogan and Silva and De Bruyne and Bernardo, and they are better, and I'm judged on winning trophies. But it's also, he's this kind of small guy, and we don't want him to play too much and get injured. So tying it back to what you were saying about those quotes and Guardiola saying he's going to replace David Silva, I know it's probably not the ideal thing. And this is the same conclusion I wrote in my article. It's not the ideal thing to say it now, and it just sounds like pulling it off. But let's have this conversation next Christmas and see where he is then, once Silva's gone. And if Foden's played, if Foden's still in the same situation now, and City have signed James Maddison, for argument's sake, you'd be like, right, forget it.
Hassan or something like that.
You could justifiably say Guardiola's been speaking politics for 2 or 3 years.
It's a big claim, isn't it? The whole "I won't sign anyone" thing. And like he said that, he said it, and it's always going to be published as well, because that is something. I'm not sure you even care if he's thrown back in his face, but he's made it. And he's obviously quite a proud person, Pep, very proud, and. I think like to think as well, even though he exaggerates, I think there's some things that you say that he likes to believe,
Exactly. Like, he's not just saying this.
He used the creative license with the 500 million thing to get a point across. I don't think anyone really thinks City would probably turn down a 500 million bid for Phil Foden. Do you think that's actually true? I mean, I feel like surely they wouldn't. Like, I feel like surely it's a metaphor. I mean, it's one of the situations where no one's going to actually bid that anyway, so it's kind of like irrelevant. But
like you say, it's a good way to put it across.
Yeah.
We're going, like I said, like, if he doesn't play this time next year and he's fit and whatever, and Silva's left and they've signed someone else, then maybe you'd say that was bollocks all along.
I think we'll see him a lot around.
But I genuinely think he will play a lot next season. I think he'll play a lot this season.
Yeah,
but more so next season.
I think it'll just be around New Year for some reason. I think there'll be a moment or two where we just like, right, those guys need a rest. And I think I don't think he'll play loads, but I think it'll be like where in the last season where as soon as he got into the team, he played like 3 out of the 5 games starting the league or something like that. At the end of the season, where he played Cardiff, Spurs, Leicester. I think he'll have a moment where he gets a run of like 7 out about 12, 13 starts or something like that. And people are like, oh, he's in the team now. So you never know. We'll move on.
I think basically in 3 or 4 years, there's going to come a time. Again, we talk about on Twitter, you see those retweets from years ago. They look stupid. There's going to be loads of those from City fans and rival fans saying, oh, Foden. Like,
which way is it going to
go? The memes about Pep not trusting Foden and all of this, and it's like he should go out on loan or he should go to another club and blah. I think that's going to look stupid in a few years because I think Foden's going to be like.
I've already got the Custis one bookmarked.
To be fair, people might cut this up.
Yeah.
When Foden is being sold to Wigan or whatever,
bring it on. Bring it on.
But I genuinely believe he's in the right hands, basically.
Fingers crossed, because he's a good lad and he's a City fan. So we'll move on to your favourite subject, transfers. David Gaskell asked, and there's another question kind of linked to this as well. David Gaskell said, is there any chance of a centre-back in January? And Rip Pressoon, I'm going to ignore the Foden bit, but he said, is Garcia and Howard Bellis got real chances in the Premier League? So what's your take? Do you think we've obviously seen Ruben Dias linked and all that kind of stuff? Pep's been giving loads of positive words about the young lads. Garcia in particular is obviously always involved in the first team squad. There's rumours today as we're recording this that Howard Bellis is on the verge of a new contract, allegedly according to some reports. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well,
but it would make sense, wouldn't it, in a lot of ways? Is it lip service with someone like Howard Bellis? I mean, he has played him, to be fair, in the Carabao Cup, so which is pretty good for a 17-year-old, regardless. And do you think we go for anyone in January?
Okay, so that one first. I think Pep's already said, hasn't he, there won't be anything. And a lot of the time, well, to be fair, a lot of the times he said something about what's it you're going to do in the transfer market, and then it's not happened. But that's because the plans have changed. So when they said they wanted 3 or 4 players, and it just didn't happen for couldn't get Maguire or whatever. They wanted a striker as well, but Jesus ended up staying, and they couldn't get. Well, they were looking at Jovic. So that was the interesting thing about Jovic, was the fact they wanted a number 9 at all. And at the end of the season, people around Pep were saying, well, one of the players we want is a number 9, but for whatever reason, it just didn't happen in the end. Well, maybe because of Jesus staying and that kind of thing. But Guardiola said they don't want a centre-back. That makes complete sense. Not so much that they don't want one, probably they can't.
Yeah.
Because for the first thing, it's really hard to buy a centre-back in January, which we'll come back to. We'll come back to, because there's a way around it, and that's a buyout clause. We'll come back to that. But
cheeky special.
But the other, exactly. But the other thing, well, it has to be, doesn't it? Because it's the easiest way of doing it.
Yeah.
The other thing is City's problem with the squad. Now, when Otamendi didn't go in the summer, they hadn't got Maguire. They couldn't then go and get another centre back. And from what I've heard, I might have said it on this before, probably said it on other podcasts. The impression I got is they would have got an overseas centre back.
Yeah.
If Otamendi had gone, but no, Valencia in the end decided not to get it. And by that point, late in the summer, I think he'd been linked with Juve and PSG, but they'd already got centre backs by that point, so didn't need it. And he ended up staying. And the City were going to sign, what's his name? It means danger in Spanish. Riesco. They were going to sign Riesco, the keeper.
Did you mean danger in Spanish? I didn't know that. That'd have been incredible. Actual signing danger.
Yeah. And especially, anyway, no, that's a rabbit hole.
No, I love that.
But so they were going to sign him as the Scott Carson. But because of the problems with the foreign quota in the squad, so they obviously thought they were going to sell Otamendi, buy Maguire, and they would have a space in the squad for a foreign player, and they were going to sign Riesco to be the third choice. But when that didn't happen, they had to bin it, and that's why he's gone to Girona. Obviously, I think they've thrown him a bone and said, "Look, sorry you couldn't come, but at least
he went to Girona.
At least come to Girona."
Yeah.
So when I saw that, I went,
"That's amazing!" Well, we got a secondary offer.
Yeah,
exactly.
Have that one. Well,
to
be fair, because I think he gave an interview saying I was ready to go to City, and then I thought I'd have to retire. So I bet he's happy enough.
They probably give him a similar wage. I wouldn't be surprised because a decent, not the same, but a decent wage. Because you're part of the group. We'll look after you. We did kind of keep you on hold there.
Yeah. So obviously in the end, so the whole squad balance thing, it was thrown off, and the plans were all thrown off, and that's coming back to January. We're going to do. Who are you going to sell in the middle of the season? Like they couldn't sell Otamendi in the summer.
Of course, that's the thing, isn't it?
I mean, and the thing is with City, they always want value, so maybe they could sell Otamendi in the summer. Maybe they just think, and look, if it goes on as it is now, they probably will. They will try because it's like, well, what's the point in keeping him around?
Yeah.
But if he turns it around, they won't want to go, we'll sell him for 12 million or 15. They're going to want 20, 25 or whatever. So the whole thing is they're going to kind of, they might just cut their losses, but they're probably going to want value to get rid of him. If they don't get rid of him, he doesn't want to go and there's no offers, who are you going to sell? Like, who are you going to sell? Like, people will say, Bravo, but realistically, they're not going to take that risk, because then if Edison gets injured the week after, you've got Scott Carson in goal for 6 months. Like, they're not going to take that risk. There is no way they're going to take that risk.
It's danger.
Maybe Sane. But, he might still have the injury then. There's so many ifs and buts around that.
There's still some, it's just like build as usual, but saying about how they might go back in for January. Yeah. There's rumours.
Well, they did want him. Obviously, I think City were going to let him go for the right price. But now, the thing is, City's hand might be tied a bit there because, it's getting into like real ticking time bomb. And obviously, a few months afterwards, if he still hasn't signed the contract, if City can't persuade him up until January to sign one, probably never going to. So by that point, they might think, okay, now again, talking about value, they might need to cash in. But Guardiola's not going to sit there and say, oh yeah, we'll look at a centre-back, because the implications of that are, well, someone needs to go. So you don't want to start that train rolling. So it's easier to say no. So if Sane goes, maybe it'll work, and obviously they'll have money then. Because another thing in the summer was, there's a bit of a theory, and I can't say this is it for sure, but Guardiola and Arteta were unhappy they didn't sign centre-back, because Guardiola and Arteta don't care about the money they spend. They just think we want to win the quadruple.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And they were like, well, if you'd have got Art and Maguire, it would have been all right, would have been fine. And especially now Laporte's injured, they could be like, well, he'd have been there. And the barometer they use is, how are we going to win at Anfield with this?
Which is
but never mind Anfield, Carrow Road at home against Wolves. This is the problem. So they're annoyed about that. There's so that's, as far as I'm concerned, that is 100% true. There's the theory as well. Obviously, it's not so much a theory, but City could have spent the money on Maguire. They
could have easily done.
Yeah, exactly. They could have spent the money on Alexis Sanchez before. They could have spent the money on Jorginho. But they got this idea of value. They got this idea they don't want to be pushed around. So when Leicester knew United would pay the money and they put the money up a bit, City were never going to go for that, as we know.
Yeah.
And also, the main theory is, while they were under investigation from UEFA, they didn't think we can take the piss here and spend 85 million on a centre back.
Yeah, of course.
Because it's kind of beyond best behaviour.
Yeah, it's just common sense, really.
So there's that. So there's that. So they're annoyed by it, and you could imagine that if City are still within a chance of winning the league, obviously they're still, if they get out of the Champions League group, which they probably will, they're going to have a chance of winning the Champions League. So it makes sense for them to want a centre back. And so if Sane goes, there's potential for it. If Otamendi goes, which is harder to see, but you could call in a favour from Uncle George Mendes.
Uncle George.
And maybe he ends up in China. Maybe he ends up... Look, Mendes has got these many clubs, not on the... he's closely involved with. It's this whole big roundabout. Wolves, Monaco, Valencia, Benfica, I think.
Yeah.
Porto was the obvious one. Maybe Benfica. But maybe he ends up in Benfica and they pay Ruben Dias's buyout clause. Now, because I know Ruben Dias is the thing people will be asking about. I had a hunch in the summer that it would be him, but I always asked around and couldn't get anywhere with it. But I had a hunch, and again, I've heard since that they would have bought an overseas centre-back if Otamendi had gone, and I thought, would that have been Dias as well? Because I think there was somebody at the Leicester end who, when obviously the Maguire thing fizzled out from City's point of view, somebody at the Leicester end was like, I think they want Ruben Dias.
Yeah.
Obviously in the end it couldn't happen because Otamendi didn't go, but he's perfect. I spoke to people at Benfica to try and find out if it was true. They couldn't or wouldn't say, but they were like, this guy's brilliant, like really, really good.
Yeah, he seems really good.
And obviously he's got a buyout clause, so it ticks so many boxes. Is George Mendes his agent? I can't remember. But if it gets to that point for City, it could happen, because if they just go...
It seems like a lot of cars he's moving around.
Yeah, but the thing with... Mendes has got good relationships with everyone. So, Mendes got... Ronaldo to Juve because of his good relationship. Juve were looking at João Felix because of their good relationship, but obviously he went to Atletico Madrid in the end because he's got a good relationship there. So he's got good relationships everywhere. But if City are like, right, George, we need a favour here, and maybe we'll do you a favour in the coming months. It's one we can call in. But can you get rid of Otamendi? Can you bring us Ruben Dias? I'm not sure if he is an agent or not, but it doesn't really matter, because if you get rid of Otamendi, City can go to Benfica and say, here's the 66 million euros or whatever it is. Benfica want to put his contract up. That's the one thing I did hear in the summer when I was asking. They want to put his buyout clause up to like 100 million or whatever, because they know clubs are looking.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It's been a long answer, but it's a complicated situation.
Very.
But if you can move those pieces around, and, there's the will to buy a centre-back, and you'd imagine there would be one, because, maybe help them win the Champions League.
Yeah, definitely.
It's there, but that's how complicated it is. It's not going to be easy.
There's so many moving pieces, isn't there, basically? Yeah. Just briefly before we move on to the next point.
Young players.
Garcia, how about Bellis?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Feeling about that?
It's the same thing as Foden, and it's the same thing as Foden in that if Foden was in the midfield and all the other midfielders are injured, he'd be playing. So that's why Garcia is, now on the bench more often, and Howard Bellis has played. Do
you think he would actually come on? Like, touch wood, but if it was an injury to say Fernandinho, do you think he would actually be the next to come on? Do you think it'd be some shuffling?
Yeah, because the issue is, like, look, you might say now with Otamendi, well, what's to lose? Take him out of the team, put Eric Garcia in. But he's even shorter than Fernandinho. No. He's a bit taller than Fernandinho.
He's about 5'10", I think.
He's a bit taller than Fernandinho, but that's considered short for a centre back.
Of course, definitely, yeah.
And Fernandinho is this freak who is now good in the air despite being his size.
Yeah.
But it's not ideal, and he's there because he needs to be. Don't forget as well, the Stones is coming back, and he's a more tried and tested option. Again, he might have a problem mistaking him, but you've got to give him the confidence because
he'll play. Definitely,
he's such a confidence player. You can't say, John, actually, you're not. We're going to try an 18-year-old or a 17-year-old.
Yeah, 100%.
So that's not going to happen. But if he's out for another couple of weeks for whatever reason, you can't. I don't think he's going to take that risk. And like Palace away, you're not going to put in two short centre backs. Not going to happen.
I totally agree.
It's not going to happen. Even though you might think, take out Otamendi because he's that bad. But if you can protect him and you can take out those situations where he dives in, Otamendi's going to give you a lot in the air. So you at least need that. It's a bad situation. I don't think Guardiola will make it worse by taking that risk and having two short guys. Now, Howard Bellis is 6'2", so you think if it's just about height, play him. He's 17 years old. Like, he's mad. A baby, like 17 years old.
He's exceptionally good for his age, but he is a baby still. That's the thing, isn't it?
And like Guardiola trusts his players. Like, it was rare that he even dropped Zinchenko, I think, for the Wolves game. And like, maybe you'd think it would get to that stage where he'd drop Otamendi, but there really is, realistically speaking, nobody else, because you can't play. Look how he's protected Foden, and he's 19.
That's the thing, is I agree. I don't think it's even an ability.
You can't play a 17-year-old in an away game.
I feel like he feared that. Imagine if he played Howard Bellis, he's got all the ability in the world, and he had a mare, against Palace or whatever. He could massively set him back his confidence. And that age, you can. I know he says that.
Some managers probably would. Some players would say, "Go on," and he might play really well.
Do you remember Dedrick Barreta when he came in the team and he had a couple of good games, and then stupid manager. I thought at the time, I remember thinking, don't just throw him against Arsenal now. And he got sent off, I think, dead early on. Was it him who got sent off? It was about under Mancini's reign. I remember thinking, or was it Pellegrini? It was Mancini, I think. I remember thinking, like, that was just, like, you've got some good performance out of him. Now take him out of the spotlight a little bit. Sometimes you need to know when to put him in and take him out, don't you? Just to kind of slow the development, because if you throw them in, they are going to make a mistake. They're not always mature enough at that age to actually deal with it. That's the thing. And I do, as much as I want to see Howard Bellis play, I actually do think...
just not yet.
Just not yet. Carabao Cup games, I think they're fine, against... I presume he will play in the next round. I presume both of them will play, actually, because I think they probably earned it, and given the injuries at the moment. I think they are where they need to be at the moment. I want to see Garcia get games, but I also can't see Guardiola.
I really want to see him get games as well.
I just can't see Guardiola dropping Otamendi just yet.
No.
And I think he
got Stones coming back.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make sense to me. We'll move on anyway. There's a really good question here from USEP, which is JS10MCFC on Twitter. He said, if City miss out on a signing, who should we blame? Which is an interesting word. Cheeky Berardi, Ferran Soriano, who's really pulling the strings in our scouting department? I think blame is an interesting word because, like, just because you miss out on the signing doesn't necessarily mean something's gone wrong always, does it? Like, it's
not always.
Football's complicated, but
it depends on your viewpoint, because like I said before with the Leicester thing and
is it to blame
the Jorginho thing and even the Alexis thing, there's a point there when they don't want to be seen as the club who...
Well, look at Sheikh's quotes, Khaldoon's quotes in the summer about how we never broke the record and that kind of stuff. And I think if he'd gone and done that after those quotes, he'd look a bit stupid almost. And I think there is a pride thing as well. And obviously his reputation is really important.
There's a pride thing, but it's just a business thing. Yeah. Like, they're running a business. And look, with the whole FFP thing, whether that's proven or not, we'll find out eventually. But they are running a business. And the money they spend is... You can't alter that.
Yeah.
You can't do anything behind the scenes with that. That is set in stone pretty much. They're not released fees, but they're on somebody's books. And, if they buy someone from Benfica, there's an official statement with Benfica saying this is how much we've got.
Yeah.
And like the Atletico Madrid thing was the same. That was a really weird thing that they paid for Felix. It was like, what the hell is going on there?
Yeah.
So, and like, for that reason, they were looking at Felix. But once it got to those realms of money and weirdness and loans to people, I don't think City were going to get involved in that, or at least not as publicly as that. So, it's like, people are saying now, we should have bought a centre-back in the summer, and we should have done this, we should have done that. And it's like, should have. Probably fine. Like, in hindsight, And in hindsight, was it a mistake? Yeah, but was it a mistake where they just went, we won't bother? They didn't just... It's not that they went all the way through the summer and just went... this is fine. With the house burning down around them. They tried to sign Maguire. That was pretty much in the bag. And then those things changed. And again, look...
It's like sometimes you don't win a game, sometimes you don't get the guy you want. It's like sometimes your best laid plans don't always come to fruition, essentially. It's like,
but again, look, Pep, like I said, Pep was probably pissed off with the people who make the decision because he was probably thinking, I don't care if you spend 85 million, we want to win the quadruple, so we want Harry Maguire.
Yeah.
They didn't do it, but they had the plan to do it and they stuck to that, which we'll come back to. And then the other thing is, as we talked about, they wanted another one, an overseas one, but Otamendi couldn't go, so what can you do? Because there's no space in the squad, so what can you do? Nothing.
My take on I've always felt as an outside looking in is that they all slightly deal with different things. Like if you look at Cheeky, he's the kind of guy who does the wheeler dealing thing, and I've always thought Berardi's the guy who does a lot of finance stuff. Like he'll be like the guy who's there.
Yeah.
'Cause I've heard he's there signing contracts every now and then with the players. Like he was the one who went
with the.
I heard a good story. Like I'm not sure how much I can say about this. I'm maybe on the camera, but about. I feel like I'm saying he's going to give away who actually told me this. So I can't really say it, but it's about the idea of things can shift. Just like that in the last minute. And I know Omar was involved in this kind of thing. And I've always got the impression with Soriano as well, like he's kind of like, I don't know if he gets involved in plays directly or whatever, but he's kind of like oversees everything, is more commercial deals and all that kind of stuff. Is he like involved with the plays and stuff, Soriano?
I don't think so. I can't remember if I ever got to the bottom of it or not, but I remember there was some kind of rumour that maybe it was about João Felix or somebody like that, but it was City were at a game watching a player that they wanted. And he said Ferran Soriano was there. And I was like, that just doesn't sound right. No. I'm not sure he's got the eye for a player. It'd be Cheeky who does that. They've got scouts to do that.
He hasn't got a football background either. He has
he's a businessman. He's a businessman. He's the CEO. So he'll be in the office saying, well, we can spend this much, or we can't go to that, or even maybe if Cheeky's ringing them, in the situations like. Not so much Maguire because they kind of moved the goalposts, and that would be a club thing to be like, right, we're not doing that. But if somebody said, oh, they want this much, it would presumably ring back to Ferran and be like, we can't really do that. So I don't think he would be there. I don't think he'd be involved in those meetings kind of thing. It's more Cheeky. Omar Barada, obviously a very important role at City. I didn't realise until we saw in the documentary, when he was at the Laporte.
Yeah, definitely.
To go and do it. That's kind of once it's in place, and he's, a very high up person at the club, a big high profile representative to go and talk to the player, in various languages and whatever, and just say, this is what's happening. They've all kind of got their own jobs, but they're all involved in the decision-making process. So I
think it's a collective thing, really, isn't it?
Of course it is.
Like when you say, I think a lot of people think that in general he's Cheeky Briggenstein because we see it online and people think he's just the one involved in transfers.
Yeah, he always gets a stick.
Gets all the stick basically. But I think the City are too well run for one thing to be all one person, aren't they? I think in general, it's very much a team, collective thing, and that's the way it's been designed. That's the way I think it'll always be as well. And that's the way I think a lot of top clubs do it these days. Three very clever minds are better than one, and obviously Guardiola and be involved in the actual.
Well, Liverpool have got a good structure as well.
They've changed it, haven't they, over the past few years, and their structure's really good. And so I think when people ask who's to blame, I think in general it's a collective decision. They all come together with it, and it makes who pulls the strings in the scouting department. That's an interesting one, but I'm going to presume that's a collective thing as well, isn't it? With
obviously they've got
the scouts,
loads of scouts, but then they've got analysts who compile the data and that kind of thing. They'll have a list of 5 potentials for each position. So when I was saying earlier on about it's no surprise to say they're looking at Kai Havertz or whoever it is.
Yeah.
You can easily say that because they will be. Because then
why wouldn't it be? Yeah, exactly.
It would be negligent of a top club to not know who this guy is, or whoever the person is. Who pulls the strings? Then it gets then they'll have a meeting and it'll be a meeting with all these people because Mbappe would be top of the list.
Yeah.
And then, so Cheeky and Pep are going, so Mbappe's the best player, so we're going to sign him. Yeah, fine, easy. And then Ferran will be like, hold on a minute, lads, do you know how much that will cost?
That's the whole deal of just signed is gone, the commercial deal.
Exactly. And there's the way of, for argument's sake, they could go, fine, you can spend 200 million. But someone in the club is going, we're not going to do that. For PR,
that's the
we
point
need to spend the money around for the budget. And so when people blame it on Cheeky, for argument's sake, when City didn't sign Jorginho, it wouldn't have just been him haggling over 2 million here or there. It was they would have had this round table conversation. They would have said, "This is the money we'll pay for him." As far as I know, actually, they had a deal. They had a deal with Napoli, and that's when it goes wrong because it's then Napoli then said, "Well, we want more money because." We want the 8 million from Sarri going to Chelsea, and the only way that will work is blah blah blah.
I totally heard the same thing. It's changed last minute.
So, in that sense, mate. Look, if they had have agreed that deal earlier before they could change their mind or something, then maybe. But even so, it's not just cheeky. It's everyone. That's the club decision. Between them all, they do it. They decide on the value. They won't go above that. But then you've got these stupid circumstances where, something was in place for Alexis, but they left it so late with Arsenal, and so did Arsenal, that they couldn't sell. So Arsenal couldn't sign the replacement, so it didn't happen. They went back in January, and then United came in with loads of money. City weren't going to do that. We all know that. Same thing with this. Napoli, they weren't going to pay the extra money out of principle. Same thing with Maguire. And, people can, other fans would be like, oh, well, City doing this. They've got all the money in the world. Yeah, they have. But they want to use it responsibly, not just to show the world, like as a pride thing, as you mentioned, like with Pep and other things. Not just as a pride thing to be like, oh, actually, we are pretty sensible. But just from an actual business point of view. At the end of the year, they go, well, this is the money we've spent. And, we sold these players. And, it's like, a couple of years ago when they sold like Enes Unal for like 12 million. Wow. But they can go, look, we've sold all of these players for this much. We've bought in all of these. There's a difference of about 75, but 75 million net spend isn't the end of the world. And that's how City see it. So you can do that. But then if you pop Mbappe on top of that, or Maguire on top of that this summer, then it does start to get a bit like unsustainable, really.
And given the fact that you got Soriano there, who is the businessman first and foremost? Soriano is about bringing in money to the club, isn't it? That is basically his job. So there's always going to be that bit of push and pull. But I think the way that City works is that I think in general as a fan, we always think if we miss out on something, we're really bad at it. But then clubs are literally across the world miss out on stuff all the time. But because as a fan of one club, we're not so invested in what the other teams are doing as much, we don't think about it as much, and we project it onto our own team more.
Well, with the João Felix as well. Because for that's an obvious example. Because obviously with João Felix, when I wrote the stories and other people wrote the stories, it's like City want him, but they want to negotiate underneath the buyout clause, which was like 120 million.
Yeah.
But that became clear quickly that was never going to happen. And if you look at the actual financial package that was put together with Atletico Madrid and all that weird kind of, they paid 90, but then there was 30 million of a loan. But the loan, I don't want to say anything libelous or whatever, but it involved an agency, I think.
Yeah.
And it was like, who's paying that, or where's that money going? It was something like that. And I'm not going to speculate on which way it went, just not to get into trouble, but it was something like, what's going on there? So it's obvious from City's point of view that as soon as it got to that stage of that much money and that much kind of weird business practice, so publicly as well, they'd be like, we're not doing that. And that's an obvious no-brainer. But then when it gets to, like we say, Jorginho, and they're there, and they think, oh, it's going to happen. We've got this guy's number 15 shirt being printed. We're ready. And all of a sudden, the other club moved the goalposts.
There's not much you can do really, is it?
But that's when fans get excited because there's more stories every
I had my video recorded, I was ready.
Especially in Portugal. And obviously in England, but the more proactive everyday updates are in Italy, aren't they? With Cancelo, it was, this is going on, or it depends on Danilo. So it depends on Danilo for a month. Like, why are you doing a story on it today? But every day there's something new, because obviously there's sports papers that need to go out every day in Italy and Portugal and this kind of stuff. So the hype builds around, and the fans are like, yeah, we're going to sign this guy. But behind the scenes, they go, we want another 5 million. And so you're like,
it happens, as I said, I can't name things, but it happens last minute. It can happen just as bad as someone signing a contract. It can happen, clubs can change it. But that's the nature of football. But
who's to blame? Like the club, it's everyone. I don't think.
Can you be blamed for having principles?
Yeah, exactly. But you say blame, and was it a mistake? You go, well, I mean, maybe it was a mistake not to sign a centre back in like black and white.
It's like saying, right?
But were there reasons for that not happening? Yeah. So it's not like I said, it's not like you went, we don't need to send it back.
A decent metaphor is, imagine your car's a bit knackered. You think, I could go on it, and then you think I could spend this on a new car, but it's a bit knackered, and then you think, but I can't really afford it, so like I'd have to probably get in trouble with someone if I do that, and then next day your car breaks down. Is it a mistake not to blame that? But you're like, well, I could have done it, but I also couldn't do it. So it's one of those things you're like, well, it's just circumstance sometimes, isn't it? That's a very bad metaphor.
I would tell you what, actually. Well, in fact, it's the same kind of thing. They wanted Mbappe when most of us never heard of him.
Yeah.
I think Pellegrini was still there. I think it was Pellegrini's final season.
It was around that time.
And then it was like they made some €40 million bid, and it was like, what? Who is this guy? But you could say, I don't know what happened there, the ins and outs. But you'd imagine Monaco went, no, we want 50 or 60 million, and City went, no way. Fine. You could say that was a mistake. You could say that was a mistake because of how good he's been.
But at the same time, it's ridiculous amount of money. So.
And also Van Dijk, because it's on the documentary, isn't it? They say, Southampton want this much, 75 million or whatever, and they go, not worth it. In hindsight, mistake. Fine, they got Laporte, and Laporte is, if not every bit as good as,
he's very close.
Like
that way. Yeah. It's like,
so it's nothing, and they have not really missed out on not buying Van Dijk. But if they hadn't bought Van Dijk, Liverpool wouldn't have got him, and then the landscape of European football would have been different because of the thing he's at. But again, was that a mistake? You could say it was a mistake not to buy him, but they made that judgment call that it wasn't worth the money, and they bought somebody. Talking about buyout clauses, they bought somebody who they felt was worth the money, and they weren't wrong about that. So even with those kind of things,
I think that every club in the world is making these mistakes, aren't they, constantly?
Because I was just trying to think of players that City haven't signed, and you think you drop the ball on that one. Because like with Alexis, with
Fred,
Jorginho, and Maguire, it was the clubs moving the goalposts, and you think, well, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's admirable. I can understand that. So I was trying to think, who did they miss out on actually where they should have just paid the money? And you probably think Van Dijk and Mbappe.
Maybe, but you don't
like
know.
I say, with him, he was 18 and no one had heard of him. And it would have been more of a shock than when United bought Martial. But then you go into the situation of United were in crisis when they bought Martial. They needed somebody. City were kind of like, well, we don't need him. This is what we rate him as.
Yeah.
Again, Van Dijk. But at least they had a backup. They didn't go and buy, they didn't buy Johnny Evans, did they? Which would have been like, that was a shambles.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like a couple of years ago with the whole Bonnie and Dybala thing. They bought somebody else who was as good.
For what they paid for Laporte compared to what they would have to pay for Dijk, it feels like the deal was as good. In terms of, because obviously he was a lot cheaper as well. He's about 15 million cheaper, something like that, from what he paid.
It was 57 million.
So, and wasn't Van Dijk 70?
So the best part, 75. So it was about 20 million.
It's a lot, basically. The difference between that percentage-wise, what it is, it's like City got a good deal, basically. So it's not like they just made a mistake there.
Yeah.
But anyway.
And also, nobody knew. Obviously, Van Dijk was on the radar because people were like, Liverpool and City both thought this guy could be really good. But people, myself included, were like,
no,
is he worth that money?
Good. Yeah, that's fair.
And like, probably at the time, you can forgive them for thinking 75 million. Can't spend that.
Well, it would have been a world record for it.
It was a world record. Fair play. Liverpool took the risk and they did it, and that's how it works. But generally, the point is, City don't make too many decisions that are stupid. They'll stick by them and say, we're not spending that money because you're either having us over, or we just don't believe he's worth that, and we'll just wash our hands of it. So, but generally, I think they do a good job.
I think they do as well, in general. But having said that, some people think they don't. And the final question, typical City, is there an anti-City media agenda? And if so, how can we combat it, Sam? I had to get that in there.
Yeah.
You can say no comment if you want to.
Well, because there's not, is there? Like, people think, like, the media sit around a table and say,
do you think
this table's getting a lot of metaphorical use today, but people sit around and go, right, how are we going to get them? But like, I can see.
Do you think? Shall I rephrase that? And I know he's winding you up there. I know it's a joke,
it's
but
funny.
It's funny. It's good. But shall I rephrase that to say in a way that? Do you think? Not that they have because I don't think they have a agenda against City, but do you think that they will favour clubs with a bigger reader base? Like Liverpool, United, bigger.
Well, again, it kind of comes back to like unintentional bias and stuff as well. There's a lot of people who are like, first of all, they'll be like, well, we've got a big audience of United fans, or Liverpool fans now. Obviously, over the years, more United. When it was like, if there's a big picture of a United player celebrating on the back page saying this is great, then which still happens with City. But when City win, there's still that. But with Liverpool as well, there's more people who buy it. There's also editors in the office who are Liverpool fans or United
fans.
More of
them, isn't there?
There's more. But I mean, generally, it's just like, this is just how it is. United. Look, you can't ignore United now. United are getting a kick in every day. Ed Woodward's getting a kick in every day. If a club's having a bad time of it,
they're getting absolutely battered, aren't they?
And it's not just the factual side of things. There's a lot of comment in the media about how United's a shambles. And if there was a media agenda against City and to big up United, then that just wouldn't happen. But there's other things as well. I can understand, even if it's not true. I can understand why people think like the Liverpool hacking thing.
Yeah,
like,
that has been quiet.
I'm trying to dig on that, but it's like
as a City fan, that is tough to say.
But people would look at me this week, and I wrote about the Bernardo and Pep thing.
Yeah,
and people were like, "Oh, that's an anti-City thing." It's like, well, fine, maybe it is. In this specific case,
I think in your job there, that you'd be responsible to ignore that. Yeah, I agree with that.
But also, I'm trying equally to get into the hacking thing and see what's going on. The difference is, there's no information coming out. You can chase the FA, you can ring up the FA, you can ring up the Premier League and say, what's going on? Yeah. And they could say, oh yeah, we're having a look, which is obviously how the Times did it last week, because the FA looked into it. The Premier League, as far as I know, still not, which is like a bit negligent on their part. But at the same time, the Premier League said they're looking into City over FFP, but I don't think they're ever going to get anywhere with it. It just seems like that's just a lax Premier League thing on everything. But it is a bit like, where is this story gone? Like, that's what I mean by I can understand people thinking, why is that not getting coverage? And if it was the other way around, if City had hacked Liverpool at any point 5 years ago, 10 years ago now, it would be mental. And during the international break as well,
that's
it would.
That's the thing is, you just know as a City fan as well, like, you know his way around. It would be a bigger story. It just would be. And whether that's, I do think it's human nature. I'm not saying, I don't think it's all journalists.
I haven't got an answer for that. Well, in some, I have in some ways, in terms of there's not much information, there's not much coming out. You know, like City, you know, it would be handy. It would be handy if City rang up and said, this hasn't come from us, but this hacking thing, by the way, what they did was this guy had the login and blah blah blah, and we're really pissed off about it. Don't say it came from us, but there you go. But they haven't done any of that. You ring them and ask, and they're like, we can't get into it. And also, I think that settlement that was agreed, I think that might be one of those where they can't even admit knowledge of it, because that's part of it, like a kind of not a non-disclosure agreement, but you know, like super injunctions,
definitely,
you can't even acknowledge they exist. So I think it's a bit like that. So it's harder on that front to get information. Obviously, the good thing about the Times journalists who did it, they had their own independent sources, so they could get.
So it hasn't come from the clubs, basically.
No, exactly. But a lot, you know, in England, a lot of the time, the stuff comes from the club. You know, if there's a transfer, they'll go, it's this much, or don't say it's come from us, but you know. And, you know, he's one of the number of players we're looking at, but you wouldn't be wrong to say we want to sign him or whatever. It's that kind of thing.
Of course,
but with this, it's just can't really talk too much about it. So there's a barricade there. You can't knock it down unless you know the people involved who were working as City staff or analysts, or who knew about the settlement. And that's the good thing about the Times journalists; they've got that. But it's very difficult to find those people. You know, I've got good contacts around the club, or related to the club, or related to players or managers or whatever. But I'm not sure what the details are there. You know, I'm trying. The good thing was, it was a story that came out 5 or 6 years ago. I think it was Steve Bates who did it. So fair play to him for doing that at the time.
Yeah, definitely,
for having those sources. But, you know, with these things, you kind of sometimes need a bit of a nudge along from the clubs. But in this case, you know, nobody's been able to get much out of City because they can't really talk about it. You know, they can't really even acknowledge that this is in place.
I can imagine it's very difficult sometimes. And, like, going back to the initial question, like, I think there's a lot of human nature involved in these kind of things. I don't for once I can think a lot of, like, most journalists. I think there will be some who inherently are just
people don't be like, I'm going to do this. It's just kind of, that's just how people view the football.
I'm sure there's literally hundreds of journalists in England. Like, there's literally hundreds. So one or two definitely. Well, human nature will probably not like someone at the club. Therefore, like the same way I want like a company based on someone I may know, something like that. So there will be elements every now and then where it rings true. But I don't really believe people sit there and think, how can we get Manchester City today? Because it feels almost like, counterproductive, really.
If you look at the first season as well, like when there was problems on the pitch in terms of, you know, just plain old City, they got Guardiola, but it wasn't going well. There was loads of journalists going, I'm not sure about Guardiola, this isn't really working. This is the biggest pressure he's been under, this needs to change, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't them having to go at City. Maybe there was an element of it. Because it's like, well, this is this cocky Guardiola bloke.
Admittedly, it was an obvious story, wasn't it?
Money. But it was an obvious story, but also just how some of these guys see football. Now, I'm the same. I happen to see this one. And
do you know cynics? Are they inherently a little bit more like?
Well, do you think what's happened with the Athletic? Everyone's like, I'm not sure about this. This is a new idea. What's going on? Don't like the way they're going about it. Fine, but this is just the way people see the world and see football, and they were thinking, this isn't going to work. He's trying to play this football. It's not going to work in England based on 20 years of evidence. I was a bit more like, let's wait and see what happens. Shit next season, then I might go, what's going on here? But I'm not going to judge it on one season. Fortunately for me, I was on the right side of history with that one. But there'll be others where I've been maybe a bit slow to react and a bit slow to spot a problem that's developing. But that's just it. It's just how each individual sees it. And there was a lot of old, you know, middle-aged English journalists who hadn't seen football like this played in England be successful and thought, well, it's not going to work. That's not an anti-City
thing. There might be a slight pride thing as well, might be, when it like, and human nature as well. Like, there'll be people in the pub doing it. Never mind just journalists as well. So they might go wrong, and then there's a little bit of pride. So you try and defend your position a little bit and dig down. But that I don't think is a thing against City. It's just very much a human thing to do. Like you defend your own stance a little bit, and it's very complicated.
And you know what? As much as anything, this often, and I know there's examples, but you know, you'll find examples of criticising United, or I mean, again, no one's really criticising Liverpool at the moment because the team's good, so you wouldn't call for that. You know, the press who cover Liverpool might be a bit more friendly towards the club. I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely fair to say.
I'm a dick for saying that, but
it's definitely true.
But I would say it's true.
Yeah.
So bring it on. But again, with that kind of hacking thing, I don't think there'd be much appetite among the Manchester press pack. With the Bernardo thing, it's like I think a lot of the time it'd be like, fuck, we don't. No journalist wants to be writing about racism.
I got the impression most people didn't want to write about it.
Yeah, no, we're
not
experts in racism. I mean, who are we as white guys to be like, oh, there's this and there's that, and the people who don't understand what white privilege is and have never even heard of it or know how it works or whatever, it's a murky area and people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about FFP.
I've stayed away from myself as a fan.
But it's the duty of it. It's our job to be like, well, this is at least what's going on with FFP, and you can be factual about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe with Liverpool there's a bit less of an interest in asking Jurgen Klopp about the hacking. I think, to be fair, somebody did. I think it was probably Sky because they need to ask. But to be fair to Klopp, what's he going to say? It was 6 years ago.
There's nothing to do with me, essentially,
Is someone going to get in the room?
And even the guys who left as well, haven't they, now as well? The people
Mark Edwards is still there. I think he was involved.
Was there another scout?
He's going to get involved with the CEO at Liverpool. Like, how many interviews is he doing?
Yeah, exactly.
And how many people are going to say when he got that time? Because normal relationships with the clubs, if I was sitting down with Khaldoon, would I go, oh, by the way, this human rights, what do you reckon? Like, fuck it, that's, I mean, there's a responsibility to do that, but it's,
at the same
there's
time,
a big burden not to. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, I'm not saying I would, but that would be a big moral dilemma to do.
Yeah, and one of those things as well, like, it's almost like there's that whole dilemma of having to build a relationship as well to be able to ask difficult questions, and you can almost like if you dive into it, you can just burn those bridges and never get to the point. And it's very difficult. I can't imagine what it's like sometimes because you got to
manage relationships.
Yeah, of course.
But you got to be responsible. You got to be true to yourself and do it. But you've also got to be intelligent with it sometimes, and maybe not drop. In fact, not drop something. Like there was with the Bernardo stuff this week. There were certain elements I had to leave out. And there were certain elements that people wanted me to leave out. And you think, should I leave that out because I want to work with City on this piece and this piece and this piece, and there's access for this, and if this happens, if I piss them off with it, I'm not going to get it. In the end, we decided to do it anyway. There were certain bits that got left out because they were denied. City was like, that's not true. It's like, so it's my information. I would think that is true.
Yeah.
And also other things. I'm not really sure about that, but like, look, given the relationship between the clubs, they shouldn't be in a position of power really, because we're an independent body, they're an independent body. If I talk to the press officer, he's not my dad, he's not my boss.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I could say, shut up, I don't know what you're on about. Like, it should be a conversation like me and you are having.
Yeah.
But he's holding the keys. Am I going to get an interview with a player? If I piss Guardiola off, is he going to give me a shit answer next time? Sees me in the press. These are the things. But so in the end, I did that Bernardo piece as far as I could. If I wanted an easy life, I wouldn't have done it at all. But you got to be true to yourself and do it.
Yeah.
But there are those times when you think, this isn't going to do me any favours. I'd rather not write about this, but you've got to do it. But going back to the hacking thing, there's a bit of a lack of information, maybe a bit of a lack of interest in people wanting to cover it. The editors, again, for what we say, maybe they just think they're not pushing it and we need to have something on this because Liverpool are, maybe more of a media darling or whatever. And what I was going to say anyway, I know we're going on forever about this. We're going to answer this media agenda every week, but a lot of it isn't newspaper examples, is it? A lot of it isn't. It's like, one time BT forgot to include City on an advert for what's coming up in the Champions League.
Or TalkSport talking about stuff or whatever.
Yeah, but the thing is with TalkSport, they will talk shit about anyone.
They're professional trolls.
Yeah,
that's literally their job.
And to be fair, sometimes even if it's not, if they got Dean Saunders on, he's just an idiot. He's not doing it to wind up City. He's just an idiot. And I'm fine saying that because he is.
Yeah, well, I think it's hard to dispute that. Really.
Well, I mean, maybe that is slanderous. Maybe I can't, but.
I
would question his viewpoints.
That's not assault on character, that's an opinion.
If that needs to be edited out, I would question Dean Saunders' viewpoints on anything related to football.
Well, he's been putting himself in trouble a lot recently, so that's a fact. Yeah. So,
but there's other things where it's just it's things like that, and it's like Sky Sports, like the ident at the end of it was Liverpool celebrating, and it should be City because we're the champions, or the advert ended on Liverpool fans saying we're going to win it this year instead of City fans, and it's that kind of stuff. But it's little things that if you already think there's this broad base of media agenda, those things fill into it. And
it's things like
again, that's what I mean. I can
having
see
Liverpool
why.
as the banner, and like, well, everybody still feels like people. Why are City there with a trophy? And it is silly. I can understand it to some extent.
Like I say, I can understand it. I don't fully agree with it, but I do understand it to some extent.
I think, as I said about earlier, I don't think it's anti-City. I think sometimes
so long. It was only a joke question.
I think sometimes it's not anti. I think it's more pro other people. Sometimes that's my humble opinion, which is a very different thing. It's very similar. Yeah. Two sides of the same sword, but they can have the same effect.
But, and again, because people are thinking.
And also,
like, because people are like, if Liverpool were to win the league, they've spent money, but like they've not got this huge injection. They didn't buy anyone in the summer, did they? So like, even if you get, they bought Alisson for 60 or 70, and they bought Van Dijk for 75, that will have been offset by not spending anyone in the summer. So if people are thinking, I'm not really sure about City's success because of all this money and where it's come from, which I can understand if people have got the reservations about that. How much they want to tie it to the football club itself is a matter of debate, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but that is, how much you want to say, this is Abu Dhabi, this is City, it's the same thing. I can't separate a 6-0 win in the cup final from that. That is a matter of opinion. So people will be like, we can write the City are great and they're fantastic. And to be fair, when they've won the trophies, people have written that. But there will be some people who are like, not sure about this. Whereas with Liverpool and United, not only are people more accepting of them because they've been big clubs for a longer time and they've got more history of winning trophies in the 70s and 80s and the 90s, which was obviously people hold against City because just for when they were growing up. So that's a natural thing as well. And it's just easier for people to go, fair play to Liverpool because they've got a good structure in, they've got a good manager, they've bought good players, they've done it within their means, and fine. But because of all these things against City, the FFP stuff, and that might even be proven to be bollocks. The whole investigation, these emails, maybe they're true, maybe they're fabricated, maybe they're taken massively out of context, and it's just and it shines a negative light on City to the extent that people, journalists, fans, whatever, some City fans, probably a very small minority of City fans, a lot of rival fans would say, I'm not sure about that success just because of how it's come about, and and the lazy idea, not just City but anyone else, if you spend loads of money, you're gonna win things, and that's often the case, but not to the level that City are at, not to the level of winning 100 points, 98 points, 3 trophies last season. That's not just money, because again, the obvious example is United. How much have United spent less than City over the year? 30 million or 40 million or something, and the difference is so stark. It literally cannot be about money. And everyone's slagging off United now because of the bad structure. Look at the structure of City, it's fantastic. But then people will go, what about the money? And is it sports washing? Is it this? Is it that? And that's why all these little things and people's individual opinions, editors' opinions, journalists' opinions, fans' opinions, it all feeds in. And the media is not one big thing. But, every kind.
There's a lot of individuals, isn't there?
And also, there's another thing where every fan thinks. Like, I remember reading, I probably said this before on one of the interviews with you, a Palace fan replying to Match of the Day going, I was shocked, more anti-City bias, anti-Palace bias from the BBC. It's like, from the outside, you think, who cares enough about Palace? Like, obviously the fans do, but who cares enough in the BBC to go, you know what?
Screw Palace.
I know Palace won 4-0, but should we put one at the end? There'll be a laugh. Like, I can't see that happening. But, there are certain fans who will think, the media or the BBC hate their club. So there's loads of different elements. There's that. There's individuals in the media. There's Liverpool. There's United. There's reasons for that. They don't sell the Sun on Merseyside. So if the Mirror are nicer to Liverpool, they'll sell more copies and this kind of thing. Whatever. Sam, we can't go on anymore.
We'll leave it there because that's the first time I've had a plus 1 hour video, I think, on this channel, which is impressive. Sam was fired up today. You were up for it, weren't you?
Well, maybe.
It was good. I really enjoyed it though. And if you want more of this kind of quality content, all that kind of stuff, not on this channel in general, go over to theathletic.co.uk/esteemed Kompany. As I was saying, it's the home of football writing. Loads of incredible writers like that, David Ornstein, Michael Cox, Jack Brooks, Trevor Einstein, our own Sam Lee here, ad free, no pop-ups, all that kind of stuff. You can get a month free trial as well. It's genuinely brilliant. There's loads of in-depth writing there. I can vouch for it myself as a user before I even got involved with The Athletic. I paid for the app myself before this happened. I hope you enjoyed that video. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a really fascinating talk, loads of insights. Sam will be back probably next month, hopefully, for about 4-hour chat.
Hopefully someone else to talk about,
There'll be loads going on.
There will be.
By then. Make sure you subscribe to my channel as well. Let me know if you enjoyed this. And go and download The Athletic. Subscribe, comment, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you very, very soon.